Die Lage. Der Podcast des Deutschen Bundeswehrverbandes.
Herzlich willkommen beim Podcast des Deutschen Bundeswehrverbandes. Mein Name ist Jan Bombeck. Heute wird es bei uns international, denn unser heutiger Gast ist Emmanuel Jacob, Präsident von EUROMIL, der Europäischen Organisation der Militärverbände. Emmanuel Jacob, welcome to our podcast.
Nice to be back in Berlin, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. You're president of the European Organization of Military Associations. What are the key issues EUROMIL is dealing with right now?
Of course, we are for the moment dealing with some specific issues. And these specific issues for the moment are, of course, the future of European defense, because European defense is again very high on the agenda. There was the ministerial meeting of the presidency in the past days, and also after what happened in Afghanistan, there is again a discussion going on which kind of European defense do we want. And then, of course, immediately it's always followed by a discussion on do we need a European army? But we have to be very careful. A European army it's a word. It's not something realistic, not on short term. And short term, I mean at least some decades. It's not realistic. But what we need is, of course, a very strong European collaboration. And I think that the idea of creating a kind of European intervention force with, and this I would like to underline, with European soldiers and no longer national soldiers serving temporary, like for example in the Eurocorps, in this intervention force, that this is quite important. And this is something that EUROMIL is following with a lot of attention, because it's quite clear that if one day we have this European Union soldier, just like we have Frontex agents for the moment, that are no longer a German or a French or a Belgian employee, but they are European Union employees. Well, if one of these days we have this European Union soldier in such a force, then we need also something like you have in Germany the Deutsche Bundeswehrverband, you have associations and trade unions in other countries in Europe, but we need then something on the European level to protect this personnel. And that, in our point of view, should be EUROMIL. There is no other European umbrella organization. And so we are very closely monitoring what is happening. We want to have this discussion on time on how to deal with the social protection of European Union military personnel if this exists in the future. Now, beside these things which are on the agenda ad hoc, of course, the main topic what EUROMIL continues to deal with is the social protection, as I already said, of all European soldiers in their nation, in their national armed forces, their social protection, but also very clearly on who should protect them, military associations, military trade unions, depending on what can and what cannot be in the country. But for us, the first step is that it should always be possible that military personnel is collectively defended by a military organization. If this is a professional association or this is a trade union, that's not the most important. The most important is that they can effectively represent military personnel, make agreements in their name, and represent them vis-à-vis military and political authorities. So this is the red line in all the work that we do permanently. And then, of course, then you can ask yourself the question, but if this is national related, what is EUROMIL then playing as a role as umbrella organization? Well, as umbrella organization, what we try to do is first coordinate this work. And with coordinate, we don't mean saying to national associations how they should do, but learn from each other and share this experience using EUROMIL as a platform to learn from what you are doing in Germany, what we are doing in Belgium, what the colleagues are doing in the Netherlands, what trade unions in the northern part of Europe are doing, and even what very small associations very often in countries without the right of association, how they deal with things. And we can all learn from each other, and that's what EUROMIL is doing. We create this platform and we give them the opportunity, and then, last but not least, we promote this vis-à-vis the European organizations, meaning the European Parliament, the European Commission, and even in a broader perspective, even towards NATO. Even if NATO is not always dealing with personnel, and surely not with social affairs, but we may not forget that, for example, you have something like the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, which are national parliamentarians representing their country on the NATO level, and when they join twice a year, we are there as one of the only observers participating at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and this creates for us an enormous network, and through this network we try to, between brackets, influence the national work. And so that's what EUROMIL tries to do as umbrella organization.
Okay. Speaking about a European Union, I may call it a crisis reaction unit with soldiers from many different countries. I see maybe not only political difficulties, because European Union, a lot of countries making one decision is often enough difficult, very difficult. But if I consider, for example, you have in this unit, you would have soldiers from Germany, from Denmark, from Spain, doing the same mission, the same job, but they have different rights, I guess. There are still big differences, I guess, in the fundamental rights of members of armed forces in Europe.
Yes, absolutely, and this is one of the very difficult points. When, as you know, EUROMIL has been created in 1972, so this is now almost 50 years ago. When you look back to that period, military personnel went on exercise, had maneuvers, had what they called an FTX, CPX at the time. And occasionally we met soldiers from other countries, but we were never really together, and we were not in a mission as we are today. So then, early 90s, things started to change. We went a lot mission abroad, and then our forces were really working together. Before, it were mainly the people working at an international headquarter that knew each other. But step by step, if you look, for example, back now to Afghanistan, I remember when we went to visit Kabul airport. At a certain moment, you had more than 40 nations working together at Kabul airport. And so automatically, and I'm not talking here about the American colleagues or whatever, but only the European colleagues, of course they start looking at each other and they start comparing with each other, which is normal. Not only the basis of their engagement was different, because some went for 4 months, other ones for 6 months, other ones went back home after 2 months and came then back to the mission area. Some of them could go on leave just outside the mission area, other ones could not. So people start comparing with each other. The second point where people obviously start comparing or started comparing was on their payment. An Italian, a Greek, a German, a Dutch soldier together somewhere in a mission, they compare with each other what they are paid at the end of the mission or during the mission. And there are huge differences. It's the same mission, it's under the same umbrella, under the same flag, but still with your national flag, and so you are working in a national context. The second element of comparing, and that's what people do, of course, when something happens And then this is something what EUROMIL started doing from the beginning, is comparing the social protection of people. I always use the same example, and it's not a real one, but I simply use this always the same. Take that you have an Italian, a Greek, a German, and a Danish soldier together in a military vehicle. Has somewhere a problem going on a device, or is attacked by a bomb or whatever, and the 4 people are wounded in the same way, exactly in the same way. Well, the difference when they are back home, it's huge.
Okay.
And it's so huge that it has nothing to do with a few €100 paid less or more. It has really to do with their future. In the one country, the soldier with a problem, disabled perhaps, can stay in the armed forces and can do another function if he or she is willing to accept this. While in the other way, it can very well be that the only place where you still will find that soldier is somewhere in the social services, not even from the armed forces, but begging for a minimum to live. Yeah. Because he or she, wounded, disabled, has no longer a place in the armed forces and has to leave. And there we say that also on the social matters we should coordinate much more on the European level. And this is always difficult because when you talk about coordination, very often national governments, national parliamentarians, but even military leaders think that they will lose sovereignty on their armed forces. This has nothing to do with sovereignty. This is a principle of treating people in a fair way, especially because they are in the same mission, under the same flag, doing the same duties. So they should be treated in the same way. And because we see that this is not really working, this comparing and this coordination of national levels, so at a certain moment we decided to change our point of view where we still say people need fully protected. But what we try now, and there are some people in the European Parliament that like the idea and are promoting this, that we say what we should have in the near future, as soon as possible, is that when people are going for the European Union in a mission, even if they remain a German soldier, a French soldier, a Belgian soldier, or whatever, but if they go for the European Union in a mission, they should be for the preparation, the mission, and the consequences of that mission. They should be seen as a European Union soldier or employee and have all the same protection. And then you get very often this reaction of, yeah, but should we pay the Greek the same than the Lithuanian? It has nothing to do with payment. It has to do with social protection. Okay. If you have two soldiers and they go on the same mission with the same threat and the same risks, they should be treated in the same way. And this will hopefully in the future be successful in implementing it. And the moment that we want to use is the moment that once that the European Union starts really paying for military missions, which is not the case at the moment. For the moment, a decision is taken and then national authorities decide we join the mission and they take the risk and they pay the money. But once that the European Union will really pay for a mission, well, then there is absolutely no more reason to treat people in a different way, and there should be then a European framework set in place. And once again, then is the moment that EUROMIL should be there to protect the European soldiers.
Good. One big mission abroad just ended in quite a chaotic way. A couple of weeks ago, we observed the evacuation operation in Afghanistan. A lot of European countries were also involved in this evacuation operation. They tried to get out their own citizens, but also Afghan locals who worked for the armed forces, but also for other organizations and or NGOs. In Germany, we have a lot of discussions on this subject right now because obviously our government started very late, maybe too late, the evacuation procedure for the locals who worked for us in the past years. Do you observe similar discussions in other European countries?
Unfortunately, we do, yes. Now it was not really coincidence, but nobody expected that Taliban would take over Afghanistan so quickly as they did. I think that there was a common idea all over the world that once that the US, followed by the other partners, decided to leave Afghanistan, that at a certain moment the Taliban would take over again. But nobody expected that it happened in a few days. We're even not talking about weeks, in a few days. Yes. They took over and did not even wait until all troops were gone. So they were quite quickly. So everybody was surprised, taken by this quick action. But in matter of fact, what happened is that at the moment that the decision was really taken, we start now bringing our troops back to or the US or to Europe, EUROMIL co-signed with several organizations a letter for the NATO member states to make sure that NATO member states would take care of their local contractual people that worked for them. Of course, through the nations, because one of the remarks immediately at the last NATO Parliamentary Assembly, so it's already some while that we are working on that, was that, but NATO itself cannot take care of that because NATO is an umbrella. It should be done by the NATO member states. So the question was there. We co-signed that letter. That letter went to NATO and to several of the European NATO member states, and then EUROMIL, in discussion with these other organizations, took then the decision to also send it to the European level, because of course it was a NATO mission, and it were NATO member states dealing with it. Now there is no difference between Germany as a NATO member state or an EU member state. It's Germany. Or Belgium or the Netherlands or whatever we are talking about. So we got also the European Union level involved. We addressed the Commission, the European Parliament, because, for example, in the police mission you had European Union contractual local people. And so also there somebody should take care of them. But once that these letters were gone, then immediately already you had the Taliban starting taking over. So really a lot of countries were taken by the quick action of the Taliban, and were not did not start yet with this bringing these local contractual people back to Europe. Some of them were already at the point of making lists and were in contact, but not really engaged. What we heard, but we cannot have the proof for that, but we heard that the UK was already since quite a while, and it seems the French, that they also were better prepared. But anyway, it was not that a lot of countries were already dealing with it before Taliban took over. And so you had then the problem that they had to start this mission unexpected, unprepared, and taking people away from Kabul airport in the chaos.
Yes.
With the risk that the screening and the controlling has not been done properly. Now, I really believe, and we as EUROMIL really believe, that there is an obligation from these countries towards not only the Afghan population that supported them, but towards the Afghan population as such. It would be a mistake if NATO, but it is more a military alliance, but especially the European Union should, as of now, not take care anymore of Afghanistan. And we understand that the European Union is willing to continue to work on that. So I think that Afghanistan will still be on our agenda for quite a while. But one thing is sure, we were taken by surprise. Everybody was taken by surprise. And then this should really be the lesson for European member states, that they should prepare things like this for the future collectively, and no longer only on the national level, and starting to what happened now. We all were going and flying to Kabul airport, evacuating people, bringing them to Pakistan or other places. While it was a complete mess over there. Everybody tried to land, everybody tried to find a spot, and it didn't work. While we could have coordinated that, we have the instruments, everything is in place, we could have coordinated that on the European level, but once again, everybody was taken by the quick action of the Taliban, and then you cannot blame countries for reacting, but it could have been much better prepared if we had a European level dealing with that. And that's also not blaming the European Union, but it should be a lesson for the discussions that are going on for the moment.
Do you see maybe a process in European Union that the European Union, the leaders are aware now that we have to do this better, maybe in operations like in Mali or in future?
Yeah, unfortunately, we always need a few problems before our political leaders get aware of these kind of things. What we see now, and what everybody can follow, is that, as I said at the start, this discussion is open again to do more European defense. Now I saw this morning in an article that the Swedish defense minister that he declared that there is no European defense at that point needed, because that's why we have NATO. We really have to stop, and our politicians have to stop all over Europe, to make a game between NATO and the European Union. It's not a competition between NATO and the European Union. What is needed, and once again, this discussion is now again open, thank God, but what is needed is European defense, which is not a European army which will replace all the European armies that exist, but we need a European operational force where Europe, without the member states, can quite quickly decide that they are needed in a mission or in an ad hoc mission, like happened now in Afghanistan. And then this discussion is open. The French, Germans open this discussion and keep it alive. The EU presidency from Slovenia now had it on the agenda. It's at the same time that we are talking about strategic compass, which would be decided next year by the French presidency. So let's hope that we can continue this discussion, because it already came on the table in the period of the Juncker Commission. But in the style of the Juncker Commission, Juncker was talking about the European Army today. Tomorrow there was a discussion on a European Defence Union, and another moment it was again the CSDP discussion. So it was not very clear what the European level want. And then the nations play very often a double game. On the one hand, promoting European defense, and on the other hand, doing everything to protect sovereignty of their armed forces. So situations have to be clear, and if there is one good thing due to Afghanistan, and it's not a good thing, it's unfortunately, but that is that this discussion is open again. Yeah. And so let's cross fingers that together with the strategic compass, which will remain on the table, if our American friends like it or not, also the Americans should understand that strategic compass is exactly what they asked since many years from Europe. Take your own defense in your hand. Yeah. And that's what several American presidents in another style said. They did not all talk Trump language, but all 5 last American presidents said Europe should take decisions for their own defense in the future. So that's what Europe is doing now, and let's hope that member states are willing to speak for once with one voice and no longer with 27 ones.
Okay. Speaking about politics, in a couple of weeks we will have elections here in Germany. We will vote for a new parliament. Do you have any expectations from a new German government?
Very, very difficult from our side, of course, to say something about national politics. But one thing is clear: these elections in Germany are very, very special this time. Now, elections for big member states are always special and influence always the future of, in our case, the European Union, not only Germany. But okay, it is a moment where you will have a big change in Germany, having Mrs. Merkel leaving national politics and so also leaving European politics. And it's very clear, Germany, one of the big member states, if people like it or not, Germany and France together are the 2 motors and promoters of the European Union. So whatever will happen in Germany in a few weeks, this will have an influence also on the rest of Europe. It will take a while before whoever takes over in Germany get again this routine on dealing with European affairs and with the partner France, and also in France in short time you will have elections. Yeah. So it's not really sure also what will happen over there. So we really have to follow and monitor what will happen if in the 2 main countries of Europe and the 2 motors of the European Union, if there is a change in political leadership. So at that point it is very worthwhile that we all monitor what is happening in Germany, and not only wishing the best for Germany and the German population, but also for the rest of Europe. Let's only hope that Germany will not go for a really drastic change. And with drastic change, I mean that, and this is then a little bit politics that I talk, that populist parties win a lot in the elections. I don't want to give names from parties where I'm thinking on, but you have populist parties and extreme parties on both sides, as well the left and the right. And this will not help Germany, and this will not help the European Union if these parties get, they will not be strong enough, I suppose, to take really leadership. But it's not good for democracy and parliamentary work if there is a quite big number of these kind of politicians and parties present. So let's cross fingers for that in the weeks to come, and all success to those who are competing here in Germany.
Okay, Emmanuel Jacob, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, and hope to be back with the Deutsche Bundeswehrband very soon for your 65th celebration.
Yes.
And success for the Deutsche Bundeswehrband for the future and for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Das war der Podcast des Deutschen Bundeswehrverbandes mit Emmanuel Jacob, dem Präsidenten von EUROMIL. Vielen Dank fürs Zuhören. Wie immer, wenn Sie Anregungen, Fragen, Ideen haben, senden Sie eine E-Mail an online@dbwv.de. Wir freuen uns darauf. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss.